can you also share the slides with everyone? Hello, everyone. Can everyone see my my screen? I want to confirm.
Yes.
All right. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our fireside chat. My name is George Christodoulou. I'm a senior executive at Hexaview Technologies, and my guest today is Matt Hart. He's a senior recruiter at Execu-Sys Limited. And today's topic is going to be about the Great Resignation and the trends that will dominate the work environment for the next year or so. First of all, I'll give you a few words about my guest today. Matt is a placement and consulting professional for Execu-Sys in New York, and he's been doing this since 1988. He is highly skilled in sourcing, salary, and contract negotiations. He is a preferred partner of Rocket Software for Professional Services, and he manages a team of onshore and offshore consultants that currently bill in excess of 8,000 hours per month. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Let's go on to the next slide. All right. Before we begin our Q&A, I'd like to cite a couple of relevant quotes here to set the context of the conversation. So obviously, we're talking about the Great Resignation, coming out of the pandemic. I think it's no secret that a lot of companies have seen both a rebound in the amount of business and projects back as we make our way out of the pandemic. And at the same time, a lot of the employees had decided to move on for different reasons. And this phenomenon in the last few months has been called the Great Resignation. So here there's a quote from Carmine DeCibio. He is the CEO of Ernst & Young. Just going to paraphrase a little bit of this quote. He said that we have hired many people in the last year, but we have also lost people. The culture of the organization is incredibly important. In our culture, taking care of their people is important, and that was really evident during the pandemic. Companies that take care of their people are being rewarded, while companies that are not proactive are the ones who are losing people today. So I found this quote very interesting in that it kind of reminds us that in any company, our employees or the employees are always their biggest asset. And if we don't take care of them, I think we have several examples of unhappy employees leaving the company, creating gaps. And this is what we're going to be talking today about. The next quote is from Aaron Sconard. He's also a CEO for Pluralsight. There is this massive technology gap and worldwide that all our customers are facing currently. The pandemic further aggravated that problem. So we need to train our people to continue digitizing and moving forward towards the newest technologies like cloud computing. Training your employees becomes a key part of your value proposition. Again, very relevant quote here, and it talks about the need to constantly invest in your employees, make sure that they are learning new skills, and that in return they're helping you help the organization. So based on your experience, Matt, I'll turn to you now. Based on your experience, what are the challenges and opportunities that the Great Resignation introduces for executives and for decision makers?
Well, I think first off, probably the biggest challenge is two-pronged. It's really staff retainment and how you go about keeping people so that they don't, quote unquote, resign. And then also just how do you address what's really become, a very laborious process of trying to hire full-time employees. In IT right now, we currently have almost full employment. So what we've seen, especially over the last year plus, for full-time employee hiring, most candidates will have 2, if not 3 offers. So you can go through a very long process and not be able to fill your position. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, which is why, especially as we're coming, I'd like to say, out of COVID, staff augmentation has really become a priority, because these positions can't just go unfilled for an extended period. So you need to be able to have people come in and, for the most part, hit the ground running. We've seen, in our business, our consulting practice is up almost 25-30% from pre-COVID. And, we see that's really the direction it's going to be. Those are challenges, but, in terms of opportunities, the way employers can now approach the market, if you are now open to working with remote employees and remote contractors where you may not have in the past, you now have a much deeper talent pool where you can recruit nationally, and in some cases you can recruit globally. So it really expands that pool. But again, you need to be able to attract the talent. Not everyone has the workplace culture that can keep the talent and attract it. But it's for a lot of companies, it's been a learning process.
Very important point. Thank you. A related question. So if I'm a business executive, a business leader, what do you think I can do to ensure continuity during this time without incurring delays and cost overruns? For example, maybe I'm fully staffed currently and my projects are all going, very well on time and so forth. But as we know, I am prone to the possibility that at any point key members of my team may resign, move on, and so forth. So what can I do as a leader to hedge against that possibility?
Again, it goes back to my original statement, just in terms of the staff augmentation and being open to using that option. If you can partner up with the right resources, as compared to, trying to spend months trying to fill a full-time role, if you have a good partner who understands your business, you can reach out to them and get someone on your team on a contract basis, sometimes within days. And, in terms of the continuity for projects and, that skill gap as well, if you need if you lose a very key person who's got a very unique skill, trying to fill that as a full-time employee, that's going to be, an arduous process. But again, if you're teamed with a good partner and you know where to go to get resources, you're going to be able to fill that gap pretty quickly and keep the continuity, keep projects, moving forward. That's why, the clients that I work with really understand the balance of their full-time employees and how to augment that with contractors as needed. And, it's very fluid. for right now, there's really been a boom in terms of, project work. And, I get, most of our business, right now is unsolicited. It's just our clients that we have long working relationships with, just letting us know we need more of X type of resource and when can we have them.
You touched a little bit on this. I wanna go further deeper into this. So you talked about a skills gap when it gets created by the loss of employees, and certainly that's true for both small startups all the way to large enterprises. And you mentioned that companies have the ability to reach out to their partners and try and mitigate that loss, that risk. Can you tell us a little bit more about practically what that means for a leader? What exactly do you think must be done to bridge this gap and to be proactive about seeing into the future and ultimately this is something that's going to affect every company. What can leaders do today to avoid this situation?
Well, I think the word that you used there that's probably most important is proactive. One thing that's come out of COVID, the companies that have been successful have been very agile in terms of how they're approaching business, keeping a very open mind to how they're going to staff going forward. This is not, the market of, pre-COVID. This is an employee-driven market, and we in IT, we see that being the case, for a pretty extended period of time. So, based on that, a good employer, really will have to understand, creating the culture that's going to not just keep full-time employees, but keep the contractors also, because the contractors always have options, and if they're not happy with the environment or the team or the projects that they're working on, there's always going to be other options for them. So it's again kind of creating that culture that people want to work with you, but really being open-minded to how you address business going forward. It's it's a very fast-changing environment.
All right. So, by the way, guys, if you would like to pose a question for us, use the the question mark, the Q&A button on the bottom of the screen. So, I have a question here from the audience. I'll read it to you. The companies that don't use staff augmentation model to ensure continuity would be at a competitive disadvantage. Could you please elaborate on that point so it's clear how that becomes a problem?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question competitive disadvantage would be an understatement. And I have this conversation with clients on almost a daily basis that if they're not going to be open to some type of first off, remote model, you're not going to be competitive in terms of getting talent. Secondly, if your business model is that you only want in-house staff and you don't want to augment your staff as necessary, in this market, it may be a good idea. It may be the way that you want to do business, but in practicality, you can't do it in this market. If you lose talent, to replace that talent is going to take a serious amount of time, put a strain on your existing talent, and maybe make them want to look for other options, which we see often. So yeah, it's and there are certain businesses that, or positions that lend themselves to working remotely, and IT is one. It's very easy, and I've always been told by going years back by some of my best people, working, from a remote has allowed them to be far more productive. And, I think that's what a lot of companies saw during COVID. I'll give an example. You mentioned in your intro, I partner with Rocket Software. Rocket's an international software provider. Their business model had always been to have people in the office. They had remote workers, but it was definitely not what they wanted. COVID hit, everybody was remote. Productivity rose by over 20%. Profits were record. So what they went from having offices around the world to closing all their offices except for one. And, I think you need to, they had a mindset at one point where we want people in the office, and they were able to adapt. And if you don't adapt like that, again, you are definitely at a competitive disadvantage.
Certainly, it's true what you said about the lead time for replacing a resource. Obviously, it's not just the HR or the recruiter, but it affects so many other people in the organization when you're setting up interviews. And let's say sometimes an interview gets canceled at the last minute, and they have to reschedule the interview. So you can see the time horizon for replacing a resource. And obviously, you're not just going to interview one person, you're going to interview several people. At that point, you're going into the general pool of candidates, and you're starting from point zero, and you're starting to do the selection process there. And at the end, you may have 2 or 3 candidates, and you make an offer to one candidate. And that's not to say that that's the end of the process. Sometimes people come on board, and after a couple of weeks, they say, you know what, I decided I'm going to go with my backup offer. So all that time was invested and potentially wasted. And the project and the deadlines don't shift, right? So you still have to deliver. You still have resources. You're down in your capacity, and on top of that, you're involving the other people on the project to have to come in and do a minimum of 30, 45-minute interviews to assess if this person is the right candidate to replace, right? So it's a clear disadvantage when you go the traditional route. And when you look at staff augmentation, and if the person that came on board after a week, after 5 days, 3 days is not working out, all you have to do is tell the account executive, this person isn't working out, replace them, right?
Correct. Yeah. I'll give you a very good example. I have a client that I'm working with right now. They're an international courier. They've had 4 full-time positions that we've been working with them trying to fill over the last 2 months. They've gotten 2 filled. They've had 3 people accept counteroffers. They've had 2 people that just took other offers. So 2 of those positions are still open. But because of that, they asked me to provide them with 6 contract programmers, which I was able to get for them in a week. And
Wow.
I think that's a perfect example of understanding what the market is, understanding what your needs are. This client had projects that they needed to address immediately. They couldn't wait to get new hires on board, and so they were very smart about the way they went about it.
And the flip side of that is companies that burn out their employees, right? So you don't do anything about it. You ask everyone to take on additional work, and then you get into the scenario where employees are feeling overworked, and the demands on them are very high to continue and deliver as if nothing has happened. So that's some of the quotes we were saying about taking care of your employees, being sure that they are, and perhaps another trend is when you're asking your employees to take on the work of someone who has left, you are asking them to cut down time for personal development and time for their own growth. It's not fair to do that. So that's the fastest way to start seeing that frustration.
One of the other things that came out of COVID when people were locked down, there's been a real shift in terms of employees really prioritizing a homework balance. And, if a company cannot provide that balance, again, they're going to have options where they can look elsewhere.
Right. Very true.
And that will continue.
All right. Second question from the audience. I know we're going to address this in just a minute, but let's go ahead and get into this topic now. How can companies ensure they're getting the right technology talent using staff augmentation?
That's a good question. So, that's a real, on the employee, the client, that's really amount of, doing due diligence and, partnering with someone, that I think first off, and probably the most important, has a track record of supplying the type of resources that you're looking for, whether, whatever type of development or SAP or .NET, what have you. Have they successfully provided these resources before? Who are their clients? What type of projects have they worked on? What kind of vetting do they do? Probably I know when I partner with someone, if I need to go to an outside source, and in the past, when I've needed certain talent that it was not in my wheelhouse, I've actually reached out to Hexaview before. And the reason that I like to partner with them is because I'm very comfortable with the way that they vet candidates and spend a lot of time, making sure that these are solid people. And I know from meeting, a lot of the Hexaview management team, that there's, a really excellent, workplace culture there. They have employee continuity. There does not seem to be a lot of turnover. So it's really on the client to again do the due diligence there. If you just want to look for the cheapest, you're going to find out quickly you get what you pay for. So that's probably the best way I could address that.
Great, thank you. Guys, audience, are there any questions here for Matt? Anyone wanna, you can also raise your hand and ask a question. Or you can type in your questions on the forum here. All right, let me move on here, Matt. So there's been in the press a lot of discussion about layoffs within technology. It seems like every 10 years or so, at the end of a great economic run, companies will get oversized, hire more people than they need to, and certainly that makes sense to some degree because you're going to overhire and see who is the best candidate and keep those candidates. But now it seems that the pendulum is swinging the other way, where we've actually moved from the Great Resignation to the Great Layoff. What we mean by that is employees are not taking the initiative. It's not their own decision to move on. but the company makes that decision. So the question is, is this something that we're going to be seeing in the next few months? And again, what are your thoughts on that? What can companies do?
Well, first off, let me address, one thing. I've always felt that the Great Resignation was a little bit of a misnomer. I think it had really been more of the Great Reshuffling. It was not that people were resigning positions and not working. People were resigning positions to go elsewhere. And I've done this, as you said before. I've done this for 34 years. I've worked through 3 economic recessions in the United States. And one thing that is always very consistent is during the good times they hire too many people, and during the bad they let far too many go. This has kind of been I think recently it's been more of a knee-jerk reaction. I think, though, that, and this is my personal opinion, and I know this from working with some of my clients, one thing that COVID has allowed, some employees have really prospered working remotely, but others haven't. And others have taken advantage of an opportunity to maybe not put in as much effort or time as need be. And now when there's a little bit more economic uncertainty, I think companies have established who those people are, and they're gonna let them go. That's why you see Meta and a lot of these companies coming very far out, right out, and saying, we're expecting more from you, and if we don't get more, you may not be working here. So one of the other things about that as well, in terms of the layoffs, almost all these people do have other options. So they may have been laid off, but they may not get the exact package that they had before, depending on where they were coming from. But they're all going to have job options, and that should continue. I think for an extended period.
I have a question here from the audience. Any advice for HR that you can share? What should be the key focus area, and which HR should work? In which HR should work to curtail the resignation, or is it something we can do? Anything in the current scenario? Is there anything that HR can do to be proactive?
So in terms of, you're talking in terms of retainment, employee retainment?
Let me read that again. Being in HR, what should be the key focus areas in which HR should work to curtail this resignation? Correct, right? Retention.
Well, so one of the things, salary structure, is probably in this market right now, you have to be willing to take a look, and are we underpaying our employees based on what the market bears? A good HR person needs to, really get out there and, get a good feel for, what does the market really bear? And, I've seen some clients that, in the last 18 months gave, across the board bumps in salary of 20, 30%. To their employees just to stay competitive. And, so that's being proactive. You can't be an HR person that waits for someone to resign and then hope you can entice them with a counteroffer. That's not the way to
made their mind up at that point, right? So they've pretty much made their mind up.
Yeah, I've always told my people that I work with, if you have to threaten to quit in order to get a raise, is that really the company you want to work for?
Right. Good point. All right. A couple of other questions here for you. So let's go beyond the Great Resignation. What trends do you see will shape the work environment in the coming years?
Well, I think the one thing, just in terms of remote work is not going away. That's for sure. So that I think is being a key. I'll give an example. Just our clients pre-COVID, I'd say our clients had about 75% of their people working on site, 25% remote. Now that's almost swung entirely the other way. It's about 20% on site, 80% remote.
Wow.
And yeah, that's not going to change.
Mm.
What I also see, and this goes back to some of the other questions, is the staff augmentation is really going to be, I think, a key going forward. I use the term agile again. If you're a company, you have to be very flexible in how you approach projects. And if you know something is, you have big projects coming up, you need to be able to staff up quickly. And if for whatever reason, you hit some snags somewhere and you need to ramp down, you need to be able to ramp down quickly. And those are the things that, allow that budget flexibility, that the full-time hires don't allow you. Especially if you're in that position where maybe you did hire too many people. And so, I think that's where I see the market, and our numbers tell us the same thing. As I indicated prior, there are the amount of hours our contractors are billing right now are up, pre-COVID, almost 20-25%. And we don't see that, from speaking with our clients, we don't see that changing at all. In particular, it depends sometimes on the market. If you're involved particularly in some of the legacy technologies where, the talent pool is getting a little older and it's much harder to replace them. Those people in particular, or have those type of companies in particular, have been very quick to embrace, staff augmentation, because it's the best way to keep the continuity, not having to maybe go to another system just because you can't find the people to support it.
And what do you look in a vendor when evaluating different vendors or technology partners? What attributes are important or should be important in one's selection process so that they can ensure that they're working with a reputable company?
Yeah, I think we spoke. Someone had that question similar to that before. Again, it's on the client to be able to really do the due diligence and talk to the potential partner and ask the right questions. And those questions are, how do you get your people? How long have you, what's the turnover? Tell me about some of your clients. Tell me about some of the projects. If I need X people, how quickly can you get them for me? Those are all things. And then, if you also have to check, what kind of insurances do you carry? Things like that. You need to make sure you're not getting involved with someone who, if for whatever reason a project goes bad, is going to really leave you, high and dry. So it's really asking a lot of questions, and being able to be very comfortable with the partner. And as I mentioned, I brought up before, I've used Hexaview before when I've needed resources that I don't ordinarily work with, and it's the reason I like to go to them is well established, good culture, good people, low turnover. I know they vet the people extremely well. And, when you have that comfort level, then you don't really think twice about saying, if I need, can you provide me 3 business analysts? I need them in a week or 2. And they say, okay, here they are. I'm not going to be as concerned about the skill level.
Right. Yeah. And just to add to what you said, I mean, there is also the individual needs of your industry, of your business, right? So in my field, I constantly get asked if we have passed ISO 27001 certification, 9001 certification. These are certifications specific to InfoSec, specific to handling customer data, customer records, being proactive, making sure that none of that data is left exposed, and giving an opportunity to a hacker to come in. So it is important to ask that question if your business is very sensitive or requires you as a company to be ISO 27001 certified, then your staff augmentation company needs to have the same certification. Because
absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up, because I should have made a point of that. That's those certifications, absolutely, no question.
All right, I think that's it. Are there any questions from the audience? Any additional questions? And if not, let's move on to the next slide. So I'll go ahead and summarize here the key points that we touched on. Right, so we talked about reducing employee turnover through staff augmentation, maintaining a focus on the project deadlines, providing world-class talent on demand and being able to fulfill the requirements quickly, ensuring the quality with the right skill set, streaming productivity and deliverables, lowering your training expenses, and minimizing overhead and costs across the board. Obviously, all of these are themes that we touched on today. With that, I'll pass it on to my colleague Abhishek here, and he will talk a little bit about Hexaview and our experience with staff augmentation. Go ahead, Abhishek.
Thank you, George. Just give me a moment, guys. I think, are there any questions from the audience as of now?
Now, I don't see anything here on the, okay. So a couple of questions that just came in, I'll go ahead and mention them. I love how Matt said there are plenty of opportunities for laid-off candidates. Can you share some tips for employees to cope with layoffs?
So, one of the things, obviously being in the position that I am, I try to stress it's very important, as you go through your career, that you develop relationships with recruiters. Someone that you're comfortable with, someone that understands the technology field that you work in, and that, so one of the things I always tell people is when a recruiter calls you, even if you're happy in your job, listen to them. Take a few minutes, and because while that may not be the job for you now, you may need that person later. And it's good for them to learn a little bit about your skills and, kind of keep you up to date on the market. And, if the time comes where you are laid off, or you get caught in a layoff, you can reach out to someone, who can immediately, step in and get you back to work. I'll give you a good example. I just got a guy, someone that I probably know 25 years. He called me on Friday. He just got laid off. On Monday, I had him 2 interviews. He had a second interview today, and he'll have an offer by the end of the day.
Wow.
So, if you have someone, you don't want to go into a job search cold and just, respond to things on LinkedIn and what have you. It's you don't even know where those resumes go sometimes. If you have an advocate who can work with you on your behalf, it's certainly going to be to your advantage.
Next question is, can you share some of the new possibilities that remote work introduces?
Well, I guess for if you're the candidate, it's a double-edged sword. So it opens you up to a great deal more opportunities, but your competition for every position is going to be much greater. So if you're good at what you do, you're going to really be able to move your career where you want it. But again, if you want to get out there, if you want to find a new position, as the market gets a little more competitive in terms of hiring, you're going to have a good amount of competition. But it opens you up to so many more. If you were in a position before where you were limited to where you could work based on geography, now you don't. That's not an issue. So again, many more opportunities, but there's going to be a little bit more competition as well.
For that, Abhishek, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, George, and thank you, Matt. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Abhishek, and I'm from Hexaview Technologies. Hexaview Technologies, founded in 2010, is in business for now more than 12 years. We have been in 7 different geographies and have resources in excess of 325 as of now. Globally, we have partnered with leading technological organizations like Salesforce, Microsoft, AWS, and some of our esteemed clients like Adobe, etc., are among the Fortune 500 companies. We are also ISO certified organization, and we specialize in fintech software development as well. Now, as we had promised you when you had registered for our fireside chat event, that we would be offering you a complimentary POC for 2 weeks. Now, in this POC, we would be doing business requirement analysis where our dedicated team would carefully examine your upcoming project needs and your business vision. We would also like to give you a project plan where we will try and define challenges, your goals, and certain processes. We will do a feasibility check and follow it up with a POC delivery. The steps to avail this particular complimentary POC is pretty simple. In your chat box, in the Q&A section, we are going to place a link. You can click on that link. You can go to that form, give us your feedback, and based on your feedback and your acceptance, we would be more than happy to serve you through a complimentary POC. So if my team can put up that form here. Yeah, it's already there, guys. It's there in your chat box in the Q&A section. If you can go there, click on that link. I am waiting for next couple of minutes so that you can carefully fill up that form. Just to give you a brief of about our location and offices, we are at US, multiple places, Europe, India, Canada as of now, right? So just let's wait for 2 more minutes and then we shall wrap it up.
And if there are any other additional questions that you guys want us to address, please send them to the forum right now or to the organizer, reply back to the email you received, and we'll make sure we funnel them to Matt and get you an answer even after the call concludes.
So great. Thank you, guys. I think we have received decent enough responses. First of all, I would like to thank Matt for taking time out from his busy schedule. Thank you, George, for being as full as possible. And thank you to our lovely audience who held on throughout this webinar. Thank you, guys. Adios from Hexaview Technologies, and we hope to catch up soon through emailers and direct live meeting as well. Bye-bye. Adios. Take care all. Good night.
Guys, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye.